This is The Guardian.
Hello and welcome to The Guardian Football Weekly. Our heartbreaking, undeserved, abject agony for Celtic. They didn't park the bus in Munich. They were brilliant at the back, brilliant in midfield. We all thought the opportunity had gone when they missed three great chances in about a minute midway through the first half, but they kept on. Nicholas Kuhn capitalising on some characteristic Bayern centre-back mistakes. Then Maeda had the chance for two. Celtic tired. Bayern started creating, but it was their turn to miss. Goretzka, Sane, Kimmich. And just as we settled in for extra time, Alphonso Davies tackles it in. Why do we do this to ourselves? Elsewhere, two shocks as Brugge go to Bergamo and upset Atalanta, while Feyenoord get the job done against AC Milan. And there's a cracker in Lisbon as Benfica sneak past Monaco. We'll look ahead to Man City's trip to Madrid and the random Aston Villa-Liverpool Premier League game happening tonight as well. There's Everton's new stadium, some shoving feedback, Paul Watson's World of Football, your questions, and that's today's Guardian Football Weekly. On the panel today, Barry Glendenning, welcome.
Hello.
Hello, Nick Ames.
Hello.
And from the excellent Sweeper Pod, Paul Watson, hello.
Hi.
Joining us also for part one, Barca Jim. Jim, hello.
How we doing, Max? All right?
Yeah, very good. And Ewan Murray is going through security at Munich Airport, so hopefully we'll pop into the call at some point. Matt says, given Celtic's heartbreaking but brilliant European campaign, isn't it now time for the pod to dedicate a bit of time to covering what's happening at Spurs and Man United? Very funny. Dylan says, the closest I've been to actually throwing up watching a game, awful way for it to end. Jim, felt bereft when Alphonso Davies tackled that one in. And we'll get to the pride and the performance, but can you try and distill that moment for us?
If you go back to the very beginning of the goal, Maeda takes an arm from one of the Bayern defenders, right? And right away I said, I've seen this movie, right? I know that's the bit. I know that's the bit where the whistle should go, but I've seen the movie so often. I know that whistle is not going to go. And obviously, as soon as the shot goes in and I saw Schmeichel parry it, I thought, this is going in the net, but not a thunderbolt. It's going to be exactly what it was. I've seen the movie so many times, and I was absolutely gutted. Now, don't get me wrong, I think the extra half hour would have done for us. I don't think we had the legs for another half hour, but if you've held out for 90 minutes, then you might just get a wee break of the ball, but it wasn't to be.
Yeah, and it's funny, isn't it? Well, not funny for you, but we last week we talked about that James Tarkowski moment, right? And this moment that is just so huge for a football team and like the joy that it brings people. And right here, Jim, you just have like the absolute opposite.
Yeah. Oh. I started after it I had about 3 seconds of being proud, right?
Yeah.
Like Alex Ferguson, very proud, very proud. And then after that, it was, I am, quite frankly, as a Celtic fan when it comes to Europe and a Scotland fan, absolutely sick to my fucking back teeth of glorious failure, right? I've had as much as I can stand, and I can't stand no fucking more. And that was just another one to add to a depressingly long list. So as you can see, having slept on it, I feel so much better now.
The thing is, Barry, Celtic were brilliant in this game, I thought. Like, they didn't just park the bus. Okay, they didn't have as much possession as Bayern Munich, of course, but they had so many great chances.
When it became apparent they were going to play Bayern Munich, I think we all thought they would lose. And it was whether it was going to be abject failure or glorious failure. And as it turns out, as Jim has pointed out, it was a glorious failure. And I think when the dust settles, they were brilliant. I thought they played so well, but they could have been 2 or 3-0 up in the first half hour of this game, this second leg. Callum McGregor missed a good chance. Kuhn and Maeda missed chances. There was an Engels cross that was just a little bit out of Maeda's reach. Another couple of inches, he might have put that away. Rio Tate missed a presentable opportunity. So I'm not going to say Celtic blew it, but they did have chances to get back in the game. And I think maybe they gave Bayern Munich too much respect, because I don't think this Bayern Munich side is very good. They were outplayed thoroughly by Bayer Leverkusen at the weekend. They weren't very good here. Some of their big names, Musiala, Kane, Gnabry, Michael Elise, were very meh at best last night, I thought. They kept giving the ball away. The two centre-backs just kept gifting possession to Celtic. So I think Celtic will view this as definitely one that got away from them. But look, they have no business beating Bayern Munich when you compare their budgets, because Bayern Munich's players are vastly more expensive and well paid than their Celtic counterparts.
Let's bring in Ewan Murray, who is either just about to go into security or just gone through security at Munich Airport. Ewan, you've missed Barca Jim talking about the agony of that injury time winner. And Barry's touched on how brilliant Celtic were, but how was it for you in the stadium?
Yeah, I mean, you would have to, I think I said in the match report, you would have to have a rock for a heart or be a Rangers supporter to not have sympathy for Celtic the way that finished. I thought they were heroic on the night. I heard Barry there. He's right. Bayern were very, very ordinary, but Celtic played a huge part in making them look that way. And it wasn't just that they scrapped and battled and hung in and all that kind of cliched stuff. They played some really good football. They played controlled football, mature football. And listen, went to extra time. Bayern were pushing more towards the end. They may well have won an extra time anyway, but it was a cruel way for Celtic to go out, not lose, but go out. But I think, this morning when they reflect on it, I think they'll take huge pride, not just in their performance last night, but their overall Champions League campaign, which has been very, very good.
Yeah, and Jim, actually, I think that's an interesting point, isn't it? Bayern had started to have those chances, didn't they? I think Goretzka had one, and Schmeichel made a good save from Kimmich, and Sane was just wide. And then I wonder, Jim, if one of those had gone in, it just wouldn't be as painful as the way it happened.
Of course it bloody wouldn't have been beaten in the last kick of the fucking ball.
It was a freakish goal. I mean, Carter Vickers tries to clear it, and it ricochets back off Davis. It's even it wasn't a wonderfully crafted goal or a fantastic finish. It was slightly freakish the way the goal happened, even.
And even the thing, Ewan, is that as soon as before you came on the call, I said to the lads that I saw it coming as soon as I saw Maeda taking the arm in the face.
Yeah.
Right. I thought, this has got absolutely all of the ingredients of a horrific last-minute equaliser. And verily and lo, it came to pass.
You and who? I mean, I thought there were so many brilliant performances, like the whole back four. I thought, McGregor and Engels in midfield were brilliant as well. If you could pick anyone out, who would you pick out?
Yeah, probably unfair. They didn't have a failure, did they? I didn't think. I thought Celtic were excellent from 1 to 11. They're playing with Jeffrey Schlupp at left back, who's a kind of last minute January loanee from Crystal Palace. And Barry's right when you talk about the scale of what they're. People like me are quite happy to point out the advantage Celtic have in Scotland in terms of their resources and talent, but they've got no business competing and at times outplaying Bayern Munich the way they did last night. I thought every one of them was fantastic.
And actually, you make a good point, Jim. I thought the fact that the way they zipped the ball about and took the ball in dangerous areas, said so much about the way Brendan Rodgers had set them up.
Absolutely. There's rumours that there's an element in the Celtic boardroom who wasn't keen for Rodgers to return. And I think he's now made himself, the leverage he now has in the summer to say, look, if we can add 2 or 3 players to this squad, there's every chance that we can make ourselves, we're never going to win it, but we can definitely compete at that level, and that's really all that we would want to do. So yeah, it's I'm still gutted. I'm trying to kind of be. It just hasn't worn off. I'm still absolutely gutted.
I remember this trip aside the game for two things. One, last night is the coldest night I've ever been in my life. I cannot properly, I cannot properly articulate how cold it was. I think they said it was -10 with the wind chill. It was absolutely Baltic. And I also remember this trip because on Monday night before the game, I went to a bar in Munich, which I've frequented before. I'm a creature of habit. And I was refused service and basically ejected because there was a pub quiz on. And they wouldn't serve me because the quiz was going on. So maybe listeners can tell you the kind of the protocol with German pub quizzes. But from what I gathered, if you're not a signed up team member in the quiz, you're not allowed in the pub.
Is it because they thought your general knowledge wouldn't be up to scratch, or you just look too thick?
I comfortably explained that I don't even speak German. I couldn't participate in the quiz. Even if I wanted to, I couldn't participate in the quiz. And I had a final plea to ask if I could just have a quick beer. I'd been in the bar in June, when Scotland were playing here in the Euros. Could I just have a quick pint for old time's sake? And I was told, no, the quiz started 3 minutes ago. Get out.
Can you enter the quiz? Couldn't you just say, here's a euro, give me a pencil? I
wasn't given that option. I then wondered if it was some kind of secret society quiz that no one else is allowed to listen into. But again, it's one for the listeners. There must be a protocol there that I'm unaware of.
Jim, I know you got to go to work, so you can go. Cheers, mate.
All right, thanks, lads. Cheers now.
One more to you, Ewan, which is: do you think that this performance gives Brendan Rodgers that ammunition that Jim suggested for next season?
Yeah, I mean, I think to be fair, Celtic spent relatively for them. They spent £30 million last summer. They signed the Engels for £11 million, which was a club record. So I think they've kind of upped the stakes in that sense anyway. They didn't sign a forward to replace Kyogo in January, which would be an annoyance to Brendan Rodgers. But I think he was pretty empowered anyway. I mean, the big thing on the horizon for them is that they're more than likely going to have to play a qualifier to get back in the Champions League for next season. And that's a huge game, or huge two games coming up next summer. So they need to have their squad right for that qualifier. That's something that becomes very, very important because, I mean, showing they can compete so well at this level, they damn sure don't want to miss out on being there again next season.
Yeah. Cheers, Ewan. Enjoy your flight.
Thank you. Speak soon.
Ewan Murray there, our Scottish football correspondent. I mean, it's worth saying, Nick, isn't it, that like Bayern got away with this?
Yeah, massively. They just whenever I've seen them in a big game this season, which is only a few times to be fair, they've been quite laboured. They've been quite ponderous. They've let opponents get behind the ball, but then had not that much idea how to break them down. It's just all been a bit slow, and they've been a team of moments almost, rather than a team of cohesion, which is not necessarily a big tribute to Vincent Kompany. And I felt last night, Kane obviously came close, didn't he, when he hit the bar? But apart from that, there wasn't too much. I mean, Goretzka obviously had a header wide, and I think another late run of his was behind the goal, wasn't it? But there wasn't that much diversity of threat. They just had enough good players on the pitch to produce a moment, but I don't tend to think that wins you a Champions League. It probably wins you a Bundesliga this season, but it doesn't win you a Champions League.
Yeah, and obviously the final is at the Allianz, and they're just so obviously who isn't desperate to get there, but it has extra meaning for Bayern. I also can't help feeling, Paul, that they just seem to amass so many centre backs who have a mistake in them. It's like they can't move for centre backs that don't have a mistake in them.
Yeah, that's a very good assessment. I hadn't thought of it as concisely as that. Yeah, they have an amazing sense of threat about them that they could just at any point implode Bayern, and that just sits really weirdly. I think that kind of is what happened in the first leg, because despite being pretty lucky to be 2-0 up, they got 2-0 up, and to some extent the game could have been dead right there and then. But again, they managed to just drift off, and Celtic got back into it. And I think that's kind of how they operated throughout this tie. Like, as soon as it looked like they could make things easier for themselves, they somehow shot themselves in the foot.
Yeah. And you mentioned those chances in the first half, Barry. The weird thing about them was 3 of them came within about 50 seconds of each other. It was like this really weird bit of football that very rarely happened.
Yeah, they should have scored at least one of those. Callum McGregor, when he was sort of clean through. I get why he took the shot and fancied his chances, but I think he could have squared it for Kuhn, who was in a better position, and that would have almost certainly led to a goal. And I think they will rue those chances, because that's the only thing that was sort of missing from their performance, was more clinical finishing. And the goal they got was probably one of the hardest chances. I know there was some slapstick defending between Kim and Upamecano. There was quite a lot of that from that pair, but it was a difficult chance, and it was well taken. So, as Jim said, it's just a frustrating, yet another glorious failure from a Scottish representative on the big stage. But they have every right to be very proud of that performance. It's just on another night they might have got through, but.
Yeah, actually, I should have picked him up when he said so much glorious failure, because it feels to me most of their Champions League failure has just been failure. But this was.
Well, I think he was including the national team, although quite a lot of their failure has just been failure as well.
It's true. I mean, there was that moment, Nick, when I think at 1-0, and it was just before Bayern had really picked up the pressure. I think Maeda had that header, which, I mean, it's really hard to direct that, isn't it, when it's on the bounce? But if he. That feels like the only real moment they had to extend their lead.
Yeah, that was the sliding doors moment, if you like, and it was sort of half a sliding doors moment. But otherwise, you're just digging in and hoping that you can scuff enough balls away and see it over the line. And I really thought, probably against my better judgment, that they had done it. But half a minute, and then they'd be through to the round of 16.
Yeah, I think 5 Live have got a documentary on Vincent Kompany. That is trailed all the time, where it's saying, he's on why he's one of the most sought after managers in the world. And I don't know if he is one of the most sought after managers in the world. And this would have been absolutely devastating for him.
Yeah, I mean, it was always a bit weird when he got the job, wasn't it? It's a very unusual career transition, that Burnley to Bayern Munich. It's not the traditional established path, is it? And he hasn't convinced me yet. I wonder if it's partly because he does quite good PR. Like, he comes across like someone you want to be a good manager. Like, I think he kind of has that look of a guy who you think, he's authoritative. He talks pretty well, I think. But actually, I'm not sure on the pitch he can back it up at this point. And I think he's pretty lucky at the moment, not just that they've got through, but I think he's quite lucky to be in the job at all.
The only other note I had, Barry, was that Jota's hair fascinates me. I mean, I know we've had players with lots of hair, but it's so bouffant. I almost
very
feel
lustrous.
It is so. I mean, and it's not envy. I don't think I am envious, of course, but I almost feel like there's so much of it. It might be off-putting.
Off-putting to him, or
yeah.
Well, I don't know. You're saying that Celtic would have gone through if he had a buzz cut?
There might the fine margins of football. I don't know. Because it's different in that, obviously there are lots of you've got your Fasses and your Fellaini's and all that, but this is like a boof. It's something.
It's quite Flatley-esque.
Yeah, no,
Flatley
it is.
in
You're
his
right.
pomp.
Yeah,
so maybe he should just wear silk shirts with puffy sleeves and a pirate shirt.
Was Flatley the only person whose arms are constantly in a natural position or not in a natural position?
No, his were never in a natural.
His
chorus line had theirs in a natural position.
That's it.
But there's only one little thing. I think the last time Nick spoke, and I might be wrong, but I think he said Celtic were only 30 seconds away from getting into the last 16, but they would still have had extra time.
What I was actually doing there was post-anticipating the Guardian's scoop of a couple of weeks ago that UEFA are considering scrapping extra time from the Champions League.
Are they? And that is quite interesting. Jonathan Wilson wrote a piece about how extra time is really important, and we didn't really talk about it regarding, I think, the FA Cup. What are your feelings about it, Nick? Do you think that it's something that should I mean, I quite like sort of players absolutely exhausted. I quite like the huddles. I quite like the feeling of extra time.
Yeah, I mean, we will see firstly whether it happens, and it'll still be a couple of years away. But I think it'd be window dressing if it did. Frankly, like we talk about the calendar, what needs to be cut and what needs to be sort of excised, where to save players' legs and stuff. And normally it ends up being the domestic schedule that suffers. But I think when I was writing the piece, I I found that only 3 games went to extra time last season. It might even have been 0 the year before. A very small number in the last 5 years or so. So how much benefit are you actually gaining for what is quite a drastic move? I think it suits TV companies very well. If you do it, they get straight to the business end of penalties, which people like, the drama, a bit more certainty in the scheduling. But would it actually make a massive difference to player workload? I am not convinced, but it makes them look like they're doing something, and it also looks like a concession at the higher point of the game rather than snipping away at the FA Cups and League Cups and stuff. So I can see why optically it probably plays well to the players' unions and bodies like that.
Actually, it's an important point. Having hosted the Champions League for a few years, you're desperate for someone to get a winner, so you could just finish work a bit earlier. It totally transforms how you view the excitement of football. Anyway, there were 3 other games last night, and they were all great, and we'll talk about them next. Welcome to part 2 of the Guardian Football Weekly. Hard to know what to start with. Maybe we'll start with Club Brugge's win away in Bergamo at Atalanta. Nick, you watched this one. I mean, an absolutely brilliant performance over 2 legs. I don't know if anyone gave them a hope.
It was fantastic from Brugge, and as you say, this was over 2 legs. This was not a team turning up in Bergamo and shithousing it. It was a team that had already in the first leg almost out-Atalanted Atalanta, who we know is quite a freewheeling, fun team, very expansive. And Brugge in that first leg, where they got a bit lucky with a penalty at the end, of course, had been brilliant, very expansive, but one-touch, free-flowing football. And they turned up in Bergamo, did the same thing. The first goal they scored very early was 2 fantastic first time passes for the goal, which was wonderfully finished by the 19-year-old boy Talby, who's playing his first full season of senior football, I think. Then Atalanta, triumphed, quite unconvincing by their standards, and Yashari runs it up the pitch for Brugge, and from a rebound, Talby scores again, and you think, okay, Atalanta have got a genuine problem here. And then there was this crazy sequence of play.
So amazing, wasn't it?
Oh, it was incredible. Just before half time, Atalanta are really putting them under the pump now, but maybe not creating many clear chances. And then Zappacosta gets the ball on the left, it hits the post, ball's fed back in, bit of hesitation in the defence. Mignolet makes not his last fantastic save of the night off the line, drilled in, cleared it off the line again. And then straight up the pitch go Brugge, and it is an absolutely sensational drive for 3-0 from 25 yards by Jutla, who used to play for Barcelona, I think, and they signed for only about €5 million, which goes to show the clever transfer dealing that has gone on at clubs like this, and we'll come to them later. Feyenoord, 3-0, pretty much game over. Atalanta, they never take anything lying down. You knew they would come back, and Ademola Lookman comes on, goal immediately, and you think, here we go. And then they win a penalty, long VAR check. Lookman steps up, and much to his manager's disgust later, who I think wasn't very happy that he stepped up to take it. It's saved by Mignolet, another fantastic save by him. There's a few chances after that, but in the end, the game winds down. Lookman, I think, was playing a bit like he thought he'd come on to do a one-man salvage mission, basically, and was maybe trying to do a bit too much to be the hero. And it's all winding down until the latter stages when we see one of the better red cards that you will see, which was
absolutely sensational, isn't it?
It was the Atalanta captain Toloi, and I watched it a few times last night. I may have misremembered some details now, but he's trying to take a throw in. It gets blocked by a guy who's sort of standing right in front of him.
Maxim de Keeper.
Yeah, there we go.
Him.
And he gets very angry, tries to throw the ball at him, but fluffs it and follows through anyway in a kind of pub style hold me back fashion, and just brawls him over. It was absolute losing of rag, and for anyone who watched that game right to the bitter end, they were literally rewarded by some absolute slapstick that I haven't seen one like that for a long time. But Brugge well deserved. They're a really nice team. Some lovely young players, play some great stuff. Sad for Atalanta, but you got to say they're a much better team. Won over 2 legs.
I mean, the Sunday leagueness, Paul, of the red card is elite, isn't it? The failure to throw the ball and then falling over, and then he sort of has to barge the ref out the way as well. It was perhaps my favourite moment of the night.
I've never identified with a player at this level more than I identified with Tolo in this one, because he's so angry, right? His team are out. You know, they shouldn't be going out here. They had such high hopes. They've been embarrassed at their home stadium. It's all building up. And I think it's De Kuyper's sort of in his head a little bit. He's a young lad. He's a bit kind of obviously a bit cocky. And he's trying to take the throw in. And then it's the slip. It's the bit where he obviously wants to wang the ball at him. Can't quite do that, then slips, and he's just like, he has this moment where he could just pull out of the whole thing and just say, okay, I'm gonna be a cool head, you know, I'm the captain, I'm gonna back away from this. But instead he just tries a rugby tackle, which is also rubbish. He doesn't even land a single decent blow and gets the red card. It's just, and then he doesn't even leave for a while, does he? It's almost like he can't believe what he's done. He just lingers and has to be sort of apologetically told, no, you're gone. It was real box office stuff, actually, I've got to say.
There was also a good moment, the goal of the game, which Nick has already covered. Yuktlia's fantastic shot on, not quite a half volley, but almost. The Lucy Ward, friend of the show, was on co-coms for TNT Sports, and his goal was so good it got like an involuntary gasp from Lucy, you know, which I don't think I've heard before when she's on co-coms. But yeah, that was a sensational strike of a football.
It deserved it, didn't it? Yeah, Nick.
I think it should be stated again what a shock that result is, because Atalanta, Europa League champions, and until recently they looked like they could go for the title in Serie A. Started the league phase campaign in this year's tournament really well. I was very lucky in December to go and watch them in Bergamo play Real Madrid and really take them to the wire. It was an absolutely belting game of football, one of the best I've seen all season. And as we say, they've been outplayed here by a team from Belgium that nobody had paid much attention to.
They're losing their way a bit, though, I think. Oh, sorry, just because Atalanta have been sort of losing their way gradually over the last few weeks. I think it might be slightly short squad. Maybe they don't quite have the strength in depth, because I saw the game against Cagliari at the weekend, a 0-0 draw, which kind of really did drop them away from the title race. They're now 5 or 6 points back, and I just had this feeling they're slightly coming undone as the season's gone on, which is sad, because it's been an amazing story in itself for a club like that to be up there vying for the Scudetto. But yeah, it looked like a club that was slightly losing their way, to be honest, last night.
Well, Gasperini afterwards tried to bring them all together by saying Ademola Lookman shouldn't have taken the penalty. He's one of the worst penalty takers I've ever seen. Which, Barry, is exactly. We want honesty from managers. I'm a huge fan.
Oh yeah. Well, I don't know what Ademola Lookman's penalty record is like, whether he takes quite a few, but that wasn't a good one. It was quite an easy save for Mignolet. I mean, I think they'd have probably lost anyway, but hats off to Club Brugge. They pinched the last qualification spot for these knockout stages, and they go through.
Yeah, a great night for the Low Countries against the Italians, as Feyenoord knocked out that classic footballing rivalry. Feyenoord knocked out AC Milan. Absolutely massive result, this, for Feyenoord, Paul, isn't it?
Yeah, and it was even more exceptional because after 40 seconds, they were a goal down at San Siro. So, all that kind of telling them to stay tight, no silly mistakes, and they're down within 40 seconds. But not only that, it seems like it's kind of scripted to be that way, because it's Santi Jimenez who played for Feyenoord and only joined Milan at the start of February. So you felt this sense of foreboding for Feyenoord, really. The first leg, they were fantastic. They really, Feyenoord were brilliant, and it was the Igor Paixão show. He was amazing. He did everything in the first leg.
Yeah, that's right.
It was one of those where if you watch the highlights of that game, it almost feels like it's just his personal highlights. He does everything. He scores. He hits the bar. He does literally everything. But this was a very different test, and partly because Feyenoord, this is not just any Feyenoord team, this is a massively incapacitated Feyenoord team. They've had 10 players out injured. The average age of this team is 23. They've lost their captain for the rest of the season to a knee injury. So all of that added together, coming into San Siro, going a goal down after 40 seconds, you can't help but think that however much Milan have been misfiring this season, with the fact this is the biggest game of their season, they're going to go on and win it. And it's just incredible they didn't manage to kind of keep that momentum going. And in fact, by the time, it was kind of already starting to go downhill for them by the time Theo Hernandez was sent off for the dive. And once that happened, it completely changed the whole dynamic.
Baz, are we happy with that second? His first yellow, Theo Hernandez, was great because it was a massive shirt pull. And then he tried to do that thing of not getting booked by jogging away from the referee and not looking around and hoping the referee might forget what he'd just seen.
Like on FIFA, right? Do you remember the old FIFA
exactly.
game where you could just run away from the ref indefinitely? He'd still be going now if he could.
What did you make of the yellow for the dive? Because we sort of talked about it with Diogo Jota the weekend, and diving isn't really... No one's really booked for diving in the Premier League at the moment.
No, and I think they should be, and I think Theo Hernandez fully deserves the yellow card he got for a blatant dive. It was a really, really stupid thing to do, and he cost his team dearly because Milan were, I think, in complete control of that game when he got sent off. I think it was only a matter of time before they scored. Yeah, it was just dumb, really dumb from a player who should know better, and apparently is currently agitating for a new and much improved deal at Milan. So good luck with that, Thiago. I suspect his agent won't be hammering on the CEO's door first thing this morning. But I don't think he can have any complaints whatsoever. And it was daft. It's like the players forget that there are cameras on the game and that there's VAR. It's I don't think VAR wasn't used here, but they would have soon picked over if the ref hadn't spotted it.
And he is getting an absolute hammering in the Italian media this morning. I was just sort of looking at a little selection, but in the Gazzetta dello Sport, there's a sort of full-page headline saying, "Theo, now it's finally over." Because as Baz has alluded to, he's had a bit of a turbulent up and down time there recently. But I think the vibes are that this might be it. He may well not get the new contract he wants. He might well get a heavy fine from the club. He might be bombed out, and I've got to say it was utterly egregious. But one thing about Feyenoord, I felt their equaliser was in the circumstances, well, their winner was a really good goal, because there have been times in both legs, I think, where they've had all the pace that Paul has alluded to from Peshao and his teammates, but there hadn't always been that kind of clarity in the final third to find that final ball, pass or finish. And now a very young team, which again we mentioned, is faced by a fairly deep Milan block. How do you get through them? Up against 10 men, you always have to work out where the spare man is, don't you? And it was a really long passing move from the back, where every time they were just patient, found the spare man, patient, moved it on. And in the end, they found the opportunity. Wonderful, wicked, devilish ball in. Emphatic header by Carranza, which was the epitome of beating the keeper, all ends up. It really, really was just one of those beautiful goals that it looks so simple, but you love to watch. But I just thought that in the circumstances in which they've been pitched, it was a very mature and beautifully worked goal. And again, as with Club Brugge, a result that was signposted over the course of two legs, I think. Milan, all these attacking players that they've got, but they kind of, it was a bit all the gear, no idea for Milan in the end. They had all these stars on there and couldn't really find an answer.
The other game was a great game. Benfica were 1-0 up going into the second leg. They drew 3-3 with Monaco, so they're through. Paul, you watched this. I mean, there are too many goals to analyse it, as far as I can tell. But the order of the scoring was exactly what you want in a 3-3. One side goes through 4-3 on aggregate.
Yeah, it was. And the funny thing is the first leg was quite a hard watch. The first leg wasn't particularly enjoyable. And so I was going into this one with lowish expectations. And sure enough, Monaco came out on form. Like, Monaco came out looking a threat, but it was actually Benfica who opened the scoring. So you're thinking maybe this is just going to fizzle out as a bit of a damp squib. Benfica now have a 2-0 lead. And actually, the man who really then took the game by the scruff of the neck was Embolo, who was absolutely fantastic. He was absolutely everywhere for Monaco, and they just could not deal with him, Benfica. And so, yeah, Embolo hit the post. It looked like, he'd scored. And then very shortly afterwards, Minamino did score, which got them sort of back into it. And then, to be honest, Benfica just looked all at sea. They just could not get a handle on this game. And, they're playing at home and the fans are starting to get on their backs. And Monaco were just playing some sensational football. And so when then Monaco took the lead on the night and levelled the tie up just after the break, you really felt it was theirs to go on and win. And
that was the goal of the night, wasn't it? The dummy, and then Benziger puts it home.
It was a lovely goal. Yeah, Benziger, absolutely lovely goal. But the football they were playing was sensational. And, it really says a lot for the job that Adi Hütter's done there. It's a young team. It's a fun team to watch. They were playing brilliantly. Benfica were clearly on the ropes. But the amazing thing was this kind of shift of momentum that seemed to happen without any obvious incident. But Benfica just started to come back into the game. And it was, again, it was really a careless challenge that cost Monaco really their grip on the game. It was a very long VAR check. It was a penalty. Pavlidis dispatched it fairly calmly. And then the game sort of went crazy for a little while after that, because it looked like, again, the game had gone to bed in Benfica's favour. And then there was this kind of crazy sequence where sub came on, Ilinkena came on for Monaco. Immediately, Otamendi made a complete mess of things. Monaco scored again to level the tie. And it just kept going one way, then the other way. But Benfica eventually did see it away. They also had a penalty, a very long VAR check again for a penalty later on to sort of secure it, which was not given as a penalty despite the referee giving it on the pitch. So it was an amazing game. Literally everything happened. But my real takeaway from it was that Monaco looked brilliant for long passages. I had a huge amount of respect for what Adi Hütter's done there. And he will feel really gutted that they haven't managed to go through there. And I always feel very sorry for Adi Hütter, because no man should be called Adolf Hütter these days. It's a terrible name. So I think the second worst name in football.
Okay, I'm trying to work. Is it obvious what the worst is?
No, the worst one is Osama bin Laden, who plays in Peru.
Well, stop it.
Yeah, there's a player called Osama bin Laden, and he's got a brother called Saddam Hussein, and his dad was going to round it off by calling his third child George Bush, but didn't have a boy, so he couldn't quite follow through with that.
I mean, it didn't sound like he was, making value judgments whether he could have called whatever child he had George Bush. It wouldn't have been a surprise. Blimey. That is that's a larrikin dad, isn't it? Walking to the pub going, you'll never guess what I called my kids. Anyway, tomorrow, Baz, Real Madrid, Man City, Real 3-2 up. How do you see it?
I don't know. The general consensus seems to be that Real Madrid will go through. I'm not so sure. I kind of have a fancy for City that they might turn them over. I could be completely wrong. Obviously, the odds are stacked against them. They're away at the Bernabeu, playing this team of Terminators who are so difficult to knock out of this competition. But they have a chance. They played very well at the weekend against Newcastle. Their new signings are bedding in. They'll need Real to have an off day. They'll need to be on top of their game. I think there will be a lot of goals, so 0-0 it will be, and Real will scrape through.
Erling Haaland named in the squad, despite that sort of worrying-looking knee issue that he came off with at the weekend. We mentioned the F-off, F-U Bellingham discussion. That TV show did have it just written, didn't it? Like big graphic. I can't remember what that show's called, but the one that's, the sort of clickbaity Spanish. That's the one, and it had, F-off, F-U, but just written like on the desk. Yes, Baz?
I just find this particular footballing debate incredibly tedious and don't really know what everyone's making such a big deal out of. But that might just be me. I don't think it's that interesting.
No, I suspect people just like saying the word, and we occasionally do, don't we? Sid wrote about how it's got a bit farcical, and this sort of crusade that Madrid are on against referees might distract them from this game. They recently sent an open letter to the Federation and the government denouncing what they claimed was a corrupt and totally discredited system designed to harm them. I don't know if they've realised that European governments have got quite a lot on at the moment Anyway, really good fit for them. So that might make a bit of a difference. They're missing a lot of defenders, aren't they? Elsewhere, PSG are 3-0 up at home to Brest. Dortmund 3-0 up at home to Sporting. And in that Low Countries Italian rivalry, PSV 2-1 down at home to Juve. So they could make it 3 out of 3. That'll do for part 2. Part 3 will begin by looking ahead to Aston Villa, Liverpool in the Premier League. Welcome to part 3 of the Guardian Football Weekly. So Aston Villa are playing Liverpool tomorrow night. It's always weird to have a Premier League game on when there's Champions League football, but it's because Liverpool are in the
It's not tonight.
Yeah, it's tomorrow for me, guys.
Oh, yeah. Wait, it's yesterday for you, isn't it?
yeah, probably. It's already happened, yeah. Liverpool won 2-0. Yes, Aston Villa play Liverpool tonight. This game is happening because Liverpool are in the Carabao Cup final. And it feels, Nick, that Liverpool, we in this tiny blip, Andy Robertson said they were nervous, during that Wolves game. And this is a start of 3 really tricky games for them.
Yeah, it's more than a banana skin, given what we know Villa are capable of at home. I wouldn't be. I mean, I know the teams chasing them need to hold on to something, but I wouldn't be writing the obituaries for their title campaign just yet. You're allowed a scratchy one against a lower down team like Wolves, especially after the drama and emotion of that game at Goodison a few days before. But it's definitely one of those where you do expect a reaction and a slightly slicker performance. Probably the passes weren't sticking on Sunday, were they? The second balls definitely weren't got to. They looked a yard off. So if Villa come out at their best, Liverpool will have a problem. Villa too, a little bit sketchy right now. Obviously have had their own defeat at Wolves, and then I was actually there on Saturday to watch them fairly laboured for a lot of the time against Ipswich, a 10-man Ipswich, and they didn't really do enough to win. So it's 2 teams who have maybe something slightly to prove tonight. Rashford may well get a start, look very sharp in the second half on Saturday. Asensio was probably their best player. These are 2 players who can massively hurt Liverpool on their day. It's one of those where a draw for Liverpool is not a disaster, but you maybe don't want to come out having posted 3 subpar performances in a row, and it's certainly a very difficult game for them.
Yeah, and they go Villa, City, Newcastle, I think. Paul, in terms of the title race, the neutral would like Liverpool to probably get 0 points from those 3 games, but we need this blip to continue.
Yeah, and it would be nice if we could have a title race. I think it's asking too much for Forest to get their way back into it. That would be the dream, wouldn't it, to have a Forest, Arsenal, Liverpool showdown. But yeah, I think from a neutral point of view, it's nice to see the title race open up. As Nick says, I don't think there's any need for panic stations, but Liverpool have got a really tricky spell coming up. With the exception of that game against Southampton, they've just got back-to-back, pretty tricky games. With the AFL Cup final in there for good measure, it's a big spell coming up for them.
On shoving, Barry, Terry says, I've just listened to the pod. It's funny how short memories are, saying the Liverpool penalty should have been disallowed due to a push in the build-up. But the Everton goal in the last minute was fine, as it was a vibes push. And you're okay with a push to not kill a vibe. Fair play. And I actually think, maybe in your defence, Barry, you did suggest that the Tarkowski equaliser was fortunate to have been given because Beto pushed Konate, just for the tape.
Yeah, that's true. Look, my home county, Offaly, won the All-Ireland Gaelic football final in 1982, and their winning goal came about on the back of a blatant shove in the back by the scorer Seamus Darby on one of the Kerry defenders. And that push in the back, that didn't count because it was my team that benefited from it. So it's all very subjective, isn't it? That push in the back was fine.
Right. Well, it's interesting because you became sort of the shove czar on the previous pod. So it feels like you were the go-to man. has there been a shove? We had like House, but for shoving. You know,
Well,
you're
I
like
mean,
Hugh
that
Laurie.
Offaly one was over 40 years ago, and people from Kerry still complain about it.
Yeah, of course they do. Of course they do. Now, Monday night, Everton soft launched their new 53,000-seater Bramley Moor Dock Stadium. Everton under-18s played against Wigan under-18s in front of 10,000 fans. They lost 2-1. The first goal was scored by Harrison Rimmer, a Liverpool fan who raised 6 fingers, 6 European Cups, which does feel very Everton, doesn't it, for the goal to christen the stadium. Cost nearly 800 million, took 4 years. The land it was on was a working dock just 3.5 years ago. Paul, it looks amazing, doesn't it?
It does. You're asking the wrong man here, Max. You're asking the wrong man. I am.
Okay.
I am not a modern stadiums person. It looks fantastic in a theoretical sense, and I think it'd be fun to watch a game of football there. A nice experience.
No, but there are bad new stadiums and there are good new stadiums.
Yeah,
like, I hear you. You know, it's not
Absolutely.
the Colchester United Western Homes Community Stadium, right? You know, it looks like you could have a soul in there. You know.
No, it's been beautifully done, and I have no complaints with it at all. I just must admit I am still stuck in the past, and I still, my favourite stadiums are the ones that are basically hardly fit for purpose, and they're probably really miserable experiences week to week for the reality of watching a match, but still love that feeling of a football stadium that is like old and deeply ingrained in the local kind of houses around it. And so yeah, I'm not the person who to go to with this one, but it does look like they've done a brilliant job.
I understand, and you know, I know what you mean. The best stadiums are ones where you just turn a corner and there it is, and you're like, wow, I had no idea. But if we can, you know, if we can move past just pure nostalgia, you sort of mentioned it already, Barry, in the last couple of weeks. It feels good to be an Everton fan, which is something I'm not sure I thought I'd ever say. But now they've got this shiny thing as well.
Yeah, it's exciting for them. I read Andy Hunter's piece. He was there for that game, and he spoke very, very highly of it. And look, Goodison Park, I've only been in Goodison Park once. I think it was 1997. And it was an absolute shit tip back then. So I shudder to think what it's like these days. But I'm sure Everton fans will have great fun at the new stadium. And some teams, was it Southampton when they moved to St Mary's? Took them a long time, I think, to get their first win there. I could be wrong, but I think it was Southampton. And just hopefully the team can hit the new ground running.
Yeah. And I mean, as it's Everton, you imagine they may be 17th and played 3 at home and drawn all 3.
It's quite funny, actually, because I remember when Carlo Ancelotti was Everton manager and was talking about how much he was looking forward to managing Everton at this new stadium when it eventually... I think it might just have been an architect's drawing on paper at the time. And so the fact that they're going to be playing their first game at this stadium under David Moyes has a certain poetic justice about it.
I mean, what I'm looking forward to the most about Bramley Moor is have they sorted the press box out, because the one at Goodison is so... And I love Goodison, by the way. Okay, everything Paul said, you can smell the football there in the community. It's a beautiful place. Love it. I'm very glad it's going. But the press box... Once you're in, you are not getting out of there. And I think every match report written by any journalist who's ever covered a game at Goodison has been filed by someone who's busting for the toilet. It is just absolutely not possible. So, looking forward to the thoughtful access to the WCs at Bramley Moor more than anything else.
DRT 1974 says it's a shame Wilson and Lucy Ward aren't in with Barry to go through Leeds' injury time winner. Sickener for you, Baz.
Yeah, Pascal struck twice.
Yeah, twice.
And I'll be honest, yeah, Sunderland I didn't give Sunderland much hope of winning this game. I've really enjoyed watching them play this season, and they're a very good young team. But I thought this would be a step too far for them, and it was looking good there for a while. They were goal up. Isidore scored again, but Pascal Strike came off the bench to score the 2 goals for Leeds, who I think definitely deserved a draw. But the late winner was an absolute sickener. But there you go.
You feel it's done now. It's sort of playoffs now, is it, for you boys?
Yeah, you think so. I mean, I think they'd have to go some not to make the playoffs at this stage. And yeah, I sort of flip-flop between wanting to see them get promoted and thinking they really another season in the Championship would serve them well. But yeah, let's go for promotion and then get beaten every week to a Southampton.
So Leeds top on 72 points. Sheffield United have 70. Burnley in third, 65. Sunderland 62. And the team in seventh, i.e. one outside the playoffs, Coventry City. Frank Lampard's Coventry City doing really well, but they are, 47 points, 15 points? Is that behind you? So yeah, you should stick it out. Nick, you wanted to mention Leyton Orient, who at one point were, rubbing shoulders with the mighty U's for who might go down from League One. We are still, and they are not.
Yes, now 12 wins in 15 in the league, I think, for Richie Wellens' side. And yeah, they played Wrexham last night away in a big promotion game. Wrexham obviously going very solidly for second place. And they went there despite a hectic fixture schedule, partly brought on by their tie with Man City. And they won 2-1. And the winning goal was absolutely beautiful strike. Try and catch it. It was the lad Jamie Donnelly, who didn't quite score the 50-yarder against City. Obviously, sadly went in off Ortega's backside, but incredible effort. And it's a fantastic hit. The corner's put in. The ball is headed somewhere up towards the moon, and just watches it all the way down and cracks it in beautifully with his left foot. It is an absolute masterpiece of technique. Pushes Orient very firmly into those playoff spots. And really, really good side to watch. They press incredibly hard. Very intense team, plays some great football. Got a player who I love to watch in Ethan Galbraith, who was at Man United, and I think is very much destined for higher things. I went to watch them last week, actually, on the back of their Man City performance. I went to watch them against Mansfield, which is maybe why I'm on a bit of a bandwagon now. But a fantastic team to watch. 12 wins from 15. Very much looking forward to seeing how they do in future. We're not very used to seeing them in these rarefied climes, and certainly not in the Championship, but I think they've got a good chance.
Something if we're criticised for anything at the moment, we're spending too much time talking about Manchester United and Tottenham Hotspur, something that would never happen on a sweeper pod. Paul Watson, can you take us to Paul Watson's world of football? What's going on in there other parts of the world?
Yep, so we got a new pod coming out today, the Sweeper podcast. It's we got a Romanian coach who has left his third tier team mid-season to go on the Romanian version of Race Across the World. This team are top of the league and he's just jetted off midway through a promotion battle. A Turkish team who have had 8.5 pairs of their boots stolen in their pre-season camp. Andre Krul has become the second player to play on all 6 continents. And then we've got the Marshall Islands with their Vanishing Kit. It's a climate change awareness kit, which is amazing. And their bid to join Oceania Football. And similarly, the return of football to Niue Island, which only has 2,000 people. Football has disappeared for about 45 years, but it is back. They were once members of Oceania Football Confederation, forgot that they were. Oceania Football Confederation also forgot that they were. They got back in touch when they started playing football again and said, great news, we've just read that we're a member of OFC. OFC said, yeah, you were, but because you've been inactive, we're going to kick you out now. So they got kicked out for letting OFC know they were active.
Right.
Because they were inactive.
It's good to know that football admin is the same all around the world. What's that island called?
Niue, which is near New Zealand. It's Niue. And it reminded me of my greatest message that I ever got back from FIFA back in the day when I was in Micronesia and we were trying to get FIFA attention. Sent a message to FIFA which said, due to bad protocol, this message will not receive a reply. How long did I spend with my email written saying, just to let you know, that was technically a reply. I didn't send that.
So it's sort of in the middle of Samoa, Tonga, Fiji and the Cook Islands.
Yeah, and under 2,000 people, but they are playing football again. And there are now a clutch of nations in that region who are outside of FIFA, who are all just starting to put football programs together. So it's quite an exciting time, really.
Oh, great. So, yeah, listen to the Sweeper Pod and you get all the bits that we don't get to. So it's a wonderful compliment in many ways to us. All right, that'll do for today. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Baz.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nick.
Thank you, Max.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you.
Football Weekly is produced by Silas Gray and Jesse Howard. Our executive producer is Christian Bennett.
This is The Guardian.